As members of the Global Farmer Network,
we believe agriculture is part of the solution,
not part of the problem.
We are committed to developing agricultural leaders
and sharing their stories across the globe.
We have one purpose:
to amplify the farmer's voice.
My voice.
Mi voz.
La mia voce.
My voice.
Welcome to Global Farmer Voices, a podcast by the Global Farmer Network where we invite farmers from around the world to share their stories and perspectives. Hello, I'm Delaney Howell, host of this podcast series. And this month we'll be talking to David Statham, a cotton farmer from Australia. Agriculture accounts for 55% of the land used in Australia, with around 72% of their products exported beyond their borders, according to the Australian Agriculture Department. Cotton is primarily a crop grown in the eastern part of Australia, where it has seen a 25% increase in production over the last 5 years. As a cotton grower, David has had a very successful career in the agricultural industry. However, he did not always have a job in this field. As he started his career, he followed his father's footsteps in the steel business, originally building shopping centers and warehouses. But in 1994, he began developing farms with his father. Together, they focused on raising livestock, specifically sheep and cattle. Over time, they continued to expand their efforts and now focus on crops and irrigation. Although cotton is still their main focus, David's farm is diversified with a cattle grazing business, canola, chickpeas, beans, and wheat.
But if I wasn't interested, he was going to stay on the eastern seaboard, and he was a developer building shopping centres and warehouses, and I chose to go with him, and we doubled down in agriculture. We got into sheep and cattle. We started 1984, we bought the property we're on now at Kita. Over the next 30 years, we've been there 40 years. Next month, we've aggregated 15 properties together to create the aggregation we have today over time. And we diverted away from sheep and livestock into cropping and mostly irrigation. We're in one of the biggest irrigation valleys in Australia, the Guida Valley, and we're west of Moree. We've got a river to the south and river to the north. We bought irrigation licenses over a long period of time. It's probably financial moves we've ever done in our lives. I can go through that later on in the interview, how it works in our valley, but very successful. A system where we share water between the environment and growers, and it's very sustainable. So that's how we got into agriculture. I worked in the steel business when I left school, but then after 2 years I moved to Moree, and I've been sort of going to and from the city and to the farm, and I lived out here for 7 or 8 years, married my wife, got 4 boys, and, we're 100% involved in agriculture, and it's probably been the best decision I've ever made. It's obviously the last 4 years, we've never seen anything like what's happened in agriculture, certainly in Australia, not too sure around the world, but I think it's fairly general. But, asset prices have doubled in 5 years. I don't think anyone's ever seen that in, 100 years of agriculture. So it's been very prosperous. We've had some good seasons. In amongst that, we've had the hardest season we've ever had. We've had no crop at all, winter crop or summer crop in 2019. That really sort of, you searches deep within your soul, and you really start to challenge why you're in this game. But the years since 2019 have been extremely rewarding. And now I've got all my boys left school, and at least 2 or 3 of them are interested in working for the family. And so, that's my history, a little bit different. And I think that's an advantage, not growing up as a farmer. My father was very entrepreneurial, a developer, and we've taken that approach into agriculture.
Cotton crops in Australia see yields almost twice those of any other country due to the rich soil and irrigation systems in place throughout the country. This makes cotton the most profitable large-scale crop to grow in Australia. David's farm certainly takes advantage of the irrigation systems put in place by the Australian government in 1974 and models much of their production after practices found in the United States.
Australian cotton industry, probably one of the most successful industries, I think, anywhere in the world, where our yields are almost twice as high as any other country. We've got no subsidies. We've got some extraordinary people that are involved. Interestingly, it was started by 4 American families that came out here in the 60s with their skill sets and a drive, and it's attracted the right people. It's extremely successful. And I think that's what is so enjoyable about being in the cotton industry in Australia, and certainly in this part of the world. One of the biggest advantages we have in this country is scale. And I think that, its costs are climbing all the time, machinery costs and all your fixed costs. And the only way you can survive without subsidies, don't forget, we've got no subsidies in this country. The only way you survive is on scale and productivity. And I think our researchers have done an extraordinary job, our seed development people. I think so. We're very fortunate that we've had good systems. The Americans were responsible for that. They put a lot of system. We copied a lot of the things that what happened in America. They brought it to Australia. We built co-ops early. We built, our cotton ginning industry was developed. Our seed industry was developed. We own all our own technology as growers. So it's been set up really, really well.
By continuing to grow and adapt, David hopes to stay at the forefront of agricultural innovation and sustainability. David, alongside his wife and 4 sons, continue to emphasize leveraging that regenerative farming background and innovative technology, which made them the first carbon-positive cotton farm in the world, a story they're proud to share with consumers. Back in 2018, David and his family started looking for alternative ways to brand and sell their cotton. Through meticulous data collection and analysis, the farm was eventually able to prove that the farming practices were sequestering far more carbon than what it was emitting. At the time, no other cotton farms were marketing themselves as carbon sequesters, making David's farm the first carbon-positive cotton farm. As the family was continuing to find new ways to innovate the business and market that to consumers, the COVID pandemic struck. While the COVID pandemic shut down much of the world, David's farm was largely unaffected and even launched a new business during this time. An idea for a fashion-forward business started when David's wife Danielle wanted to wear the cotton grown on their farm. Today, they run a direct-to-consumer cotton business.
Because the world's changing. There's no one in between. The breweries are dealing with farmers, and the brands, cotton brands, the clothing brands around the world are dealing with farmers from our brand. And that's the biggest change that I can see in the world. We've got the power to solve this. And most of this is around carbon and carbon capture and carbon recording. And that's why I'm wearing the Downforce hat. I want to promote them. It's a technology that I've found that is a satellite-based technology that's measuring every 10 square metres of our farm, 5 years of data. It's every 10 days it goes over and captures through cloud every 10 square metres of your farm. All you do is you give them a farm basis and you'll end up within a week of 5 years of data, and you can see and measure every practice that you're doing both on your livestock and your farming system, and you're either sequestering carbon as a farmer or you're emitting. And so that's the messaging, and that's the power that we have, and that's the advantage we have going forward. And that's where agriculture is changing, where we can dominate a premium, but you've got to have the records. You've got to be able to measure what you're doing. So that's where I'm here at a field day, hiding in a corner, supporting someone similar in the industry, but in another supply chain doing the same thing.
Becoming the world's first carbon-positive cotton farm was no easy task. The farm's biggest challenge was and continues to be its water supply. With an annual rainfall of around 20 inches or just over 500 millimeters, David has to be strategic about when and where he plants his crop.
And we have got 26,000 acres of irrigated cotton of country. We do 100% rotation. So we've got, because we want to be long-term sustainable with our water. Water is our biggest limiting factor. So we grow 1 year in, 1 year out. So we'll plant cotton in September, October, harvest in April, May. We plant wheat straight in behind our cotton. We harvest that wheat in November and leave it fallow until the following year. So we're getting one cotton crop per year. Once again, that's the benefit of being in Australia, where you've got land is not an issue. You can't do that in a lot of countries but that allows us to go no-till. When no-till, all that, the wheat stubble's going back in, the cotton stubble's going back in, we don't burn anything. It's all direct drill. There's very minimal tillage, and that's where we're building a carbon story. So that's and this year we're using canola on our irrigation as a toxin in the root system. It's Fusarium wilt is one of the issues, so we're building up some fusarium areas. So we're trying to use the canola as a bit of a rotation. In our dryland operation, we use fava beans and chickpeas to minimise our fertiliser input using legume crops, and that's a 3-year rotation: dryland cotton, a wheat, and a legume, to try and have a minimum to zero fertiliser input. So that's how we operate, and it's all about all the dryland is no-till. And that's by maintaining that biomass, no-till operations, and a rotation of those 3 crops: dryland cotton, a wheat, a cereal, and a legume. It gives us a really good rotation. But our biggest limiting factor here, we're in about a 20-inch rainfall. And the reason we've done all this is not for carbon originally. It was done for moisture conservation. It just makes common sense. When your moisture is your limiting factor. But when you do that, and you've got a technology like this that can measure what you're doing, your soil carbon tends to build, and that's where we had the idea to brand our own cotton.
The cotton that comes from their farm is traceable by a spectrometer, a special machine that determines exact hues of colors. Their specific hue comes from rare earth minerals that are blended in their gin. These minerals allow their cotton to have the longest and strongest staples. Through marketing, David and his wife Danielle have been able to tell their story and achieve an even higher premium for their Australian cotton.
Most mills pay a premium for Australian cotton because we've got longer staple, stronger staple, no contamination. So there's a lot of value in people, but they've got to pay more money. But they're in a competitive game. To produce a garment, these guys are under pressure, so they mix and blend. So Danielle was never going to be able to achieve her dream because it was always mixed and blended. And they cheat. They just do. They say it's Australian cotton, but there's no way it ever was. And so we came across a technology from the International Cotton Association in Liverpool. They started doing trials in Germany, and it's the same technology that's in the American $100 bill, the European the euro. It's paper security. So it's a rare earth mineral that's benign. It's white, like it looks like talcum powder or cocaine. It's a white powder that is put into a viscose fibre. Inside the wall of the fibre is the rare earth mineral, and we blend it in our cotton gin at about 0.2%. What that does, we have then a scanner that picks up the spectrometry because it excites the pigment, and you can pick it up in the scanner, and the 5 lights come up, 5 green lights. If I had a scanner, I'd be able to put the scanner on my shirt and prove 100% that it's from my farm. So we've got our own signature Good Earth cotton, so it's from our farm. And if we wanted to, we're getting to the point where we can go back to the field and we can go back to the 10 square metres or the 50 square metres that came from on the planet because of the John Deere technology. And people want to know where their food and fibre is coming from. That's why we decided to do it. When we realised that our farming system is sequestering more than we're emitting, the world of ESG, people are paying for it. These brands have got significant requirements of recording their carbon emissions and their footprints, and farmers hold the key. We are the brand's third scope 3 emissions. They need us, and that's where it's turning. Traditionally, cotton's the second longest traded commodity in the world. For 200 years, it's gone to a trader. It's gone to the big merchants around the world, and then they feed the mills and the brands. So you lose. There's no connectivity in the past from brand to farmer. Today there is. We're dealing with, and we're selling our cotton and selling our story directly because of Fibre Trace. Fibre Trace is allowing us to tell a story. And that's the combination. When you put the two together, that's where the premiums come in, and that's where our storytelling. You've got to be able to tell a story, but you've got to be able to trace it. And in fibre, because of the purchase, we own the Fibre Trace business now. It's moved to London. Our suppliers are out of Germany, and all our customers are in Europe. The biggest brands are in Europe, and they've got this obligation to report their supply chain, and we start the whole process. And that's where the whole world has changed. The farmers are in more control now than they ever.
David's future plans include educating other cotton farmers about this technology in hopes it gains traction around the world. The Global Farmer Network will continue to support David's efforts in sustainability and amplify his voice to the world. If you're interested in learning more about the Global Farmer Network's mission and its members, seeing some of the things the organization is doing, and finding out ways you can get involved, please visit globalfarmernetwork.org. And if you'd like to support the Global Farmer Network through a donation, you can do so at globalfarmernetwork.org/donate. If you enjoyed the podcast today, please be sure to subscribe and follow Global Farmer Network on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. Until next time, I'm Delaney Howell, and this has been the Global Farmer Voices podcast.